This is the Awful Announcing Podcast. Here's your host, Brandon Contes.
Alrighty, welcome to episode 107 of the Awful Announcing Podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Contes, and this week we were joined by a former NFL quarterback, now a longtime NFL analyst for ESPN, who just re-upped with ESPN for 4 more years, and that is Dan Orlovsky. With training camps opening up this week, we thought it was a good time to check in with one of the best NFL studio analysts on TV, which Dan is, but there's no bad time to have Dan on because he's also one of the most interesting personalities on television. So we got to discuss his decision to stay with ESPN. We discussed how real the prospect of leaving was before he signed his latest contract. We talked about working with Stephen A. Smith, Dan's desire to call more games, even the biggest games in the NFL, and his coaching aspirations. We also asked Dan about some of his weird and not weird food takes before finishing up with some current events in the NFL and what was a great conversation with one of ESPN's most popular analysts and personalities. As always, make sure you rate and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you also subscribe to Awful Announcing's YouTube page and enjoy this week's episode of the Awful Announcing Podcast with guest Dan Orlovsky. All right. People love him for his NFL analysis, and they love to hate on him for his food takes. He is Dan Orlovsky, and he is still with ESPN. Dan, thanks so much for coming on the Awful Announcing Podcast. We'll say a long time coming, but congratulations on the new contract with ESPN. I'm sure wanting to finally jump on this podcast was the driving force in getting that deal done.
Yeah, that was the finishing move, was to make sure that got done so I could hop on with you guys. But no, good to be on with you, and I'm excited to chat about whatever is going to get chatted about.
It was hard for me to envision you being anywhere other than ESPN, which I think it shows just how valuable you are, because you've made yourself into one of the most familiar personalities on the network. Were you able to envision yourself leaving ESPN and going elsewhere?
Yeah, thanks for saying that. I think there's moments when I would tell you that I agreed with even your thought, like when you start to really dive in and think about it, it is at times, or it was at times, difficult to envision me leaving and going somewhere else and kind of starting anew in a way. But I really tried to be very disciplined with the way I was looking at it and trying to commit to, seeing myself somewhere else and spending a lot of time thinking about and almost pretending that I was. All right, Dan, you've left and you've gone here. What does it actually look like? What is that going to look like in 2025 and then 26, 27, and so on? And so there's moments when, yes, I would agree. And then that, trying to, and I've said this, I worked like a lot of people, but just from my vantage point, like I worked really, 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 really hard for those 7 or so years to like put myself in that situation. And I didn't want to not take advantage of the situation and really try to see what was going to be best for my family, our kids, being in this business and industry moving forward, if that was going to be the long-term plan. So, yes, at times, but I felt like I was pretty disciplined in doing so.
Were you surprised by the interest level in your contract situation from like the audience and like on social media and just the articles that were being written about it?
Um, I think you have to be very aware of who you are. And so I think that I was flattered by the interest level. I think I was humbled by it. I also know that I work a lot at ESPN. Like I know that during the football season, I'm on TV 6 days a week.
Yeah.
So I'm not unaware of what that is and the value that that brings. And I think there's a reality to when people see you on TV a lot, especially during, attachment to football, which is what this country loves, at least sport wise, the most. It's just going to, whether right or wrong, like it's going to heighten who you are in those people's eyes, I would say. Like I say this, I walk through airports, ESPN's on. A month ago, I was down in Nashville. Every television had ESPN on. So like I was humbled by it and flattered by it, but I'm also not naive to the reality of what my role is and how much I'm on during the football season.
The that sign off of First Take shortly after the Super Bowl, was it a goodbye? Like, was it a bit of a contract negotiation tactic? Like, what was that?
So my answer to that is I honestly don't think, and this is, I mean, this is I say this all the time, the downside of being like a brutally honest person. I don't think I needed tactics. Like I really, really, and I would say this to my agents during the process, like I truly believed in the work. I believed that the work that I had done was more than enough to get what we felt was the right thing. I've done that before, that sign off. I do that basically every time I'm on First Take, like the day or two after the Super Bowl when, and this again goes back to the point of I go from like the third week of August till the second week of February, and I'm on people's television just about every day. So it's cold turkey where I go from all the time to none of the time. And so I often do that. And there is a level of gratitude of being like, yo, Stephen A, Molly, Greeny, like I'm very grateful that you guys allow me to be a part of the show. Um, I and there was just I guess at that point, you're exhausted in the season. And so I was aware that like really long season culminated a lot of years of hard work. I knew the contract was coming up, but I don't think that there was a motive of like a tactic. I just knew what was on the horizon.
Yeah, it came across as genuine and honest, but I do think that the never I think you said you
You
never
never
know
know
what
what
the
the
future
future
holds.
holds thing.
Yeah,
And I think, Brandon, I would tell you this, like it truly, I was in a time there ending the season where I really was open to a lot of what the future was going to be. We didn't necessarily like start deep dives into the contracts, but I knew through some conversations that there was potential elsewhere. I also was having probably more in depth and high level interest of going into coaching than I had
mm,
before too. And so there was just the reality of like I honestly that wasn't a tactic, that wasn't a let me threaten you because ESPN could just be like, shut up, dude. So that was me just being honest, being like, yo, I don't know if this will be now. Did I know that like I was going to work a little bit around the draft? And of course, yes. But I didn't know if that was going to be my last time kind of doing that run on ESPN, and
yeah.
that was like a genuine thing for me.
I know Andrew Marchand had reported the CBS offer a few months ago. That was partially to replace Gary Danielson, which I think I'm pretty sure you then confirmed that to Jimmy Traina a couple weeks ago as well. Was that job appealing, being a prominent college game analyst?
Oh, of course, yeah. I think so. Just from my perspective on like the appeal of that role and CBS, I've known some of the people and the decision makers at CBS for a while now. They're really good people, and so when you sit with them and talk to them, you just enjoy being with them. You're like, "Yo, these are good dudes," and they get the big picture of it all. Um, I grew up on 3:30 CBS in many ways. Like Saturdays 3:30 CBS SEC game. Like in many ways, I grew up on that, so I know the weight of that role and that network and the prestige that it has. I know that when they walk into buildings, that carries a lot of clout. So that was appealing. There's you're a part of the lead game. You're the lead game analyst or their number one game analyst. And then there was also the conversations of it wasn't going to be just that. It was going to be whether that was going to be an immediate thing or couple months away thing or a year away thing or you were going to be a part of their NFL coverage and what role would that be? I think that was a little bit of a um, not determined fully, but so you sit there and go, really good people have a ton of credibility. It's an awesome game. The Big Ten is an outstanding conference. Yeah, like that was. there, and then again, there's just the reality of I worked 6 days a week during the football season for 7 months with ESPN. You don't do that really at CBS. So
Yeah.
there was that, of okay, is that something that I want? I don't want? Am I interested in? Have I not thought about it? So that was another part of that puzzle when it comes to decisions.
So do you think would you have missed those weekday studio shows if you left ESPN, or was that more an appeal, the fact that like you would no longer feel the need and like the drive to be on ESPN every single day during the NFL season?
No, I think I would miss it, certainly initially, because it's certainly a comfort level of mine. I say this all the time to people, when, again, so many people see me and they're like, yo, you work so much. And my reply is always like, yes, but I live here. I live in Connecticut. So like that's a massive advantage for me. During the busiest time, I'm home in the mornings more often than not with my kids. I'm home at dinner or coaching them. So I don't have to get on planes and stay in hotels for 3 or 4 nights a week like some others do that work at ESPN. That's just their reality. So I do think I would have missed it, and certainly initially early on. I also think that, and this might be a little bit of a sicko in me, like when you're on all the time that I am, you can't slack off. Like you can't like lay off and not be on top of it. I think that there's like a productive paranoia attached to that, where the last thing I want to do is go on TV and say something that's uninformed or wrong. And
Mhm.
so I do believe it helps me keep my edge.
Yeah.
I have to have edge in this industry because I wasn't the star player. So I think I would have missed it. I also think I don't believe I would have been as good as I want myself to be at the job.
So were there any offers that could match what ESPN is able to offer, which is the chance to be on TV almost every day during the NFL season? Like was that out there?
I think that would have been out there in maybe multiple parties being attached to it. I don't think that there
Okay.
was that opportunity with one place, but I do think that I would have, I know I would have had the opportunity to piece a puzzle or two or three together
Yeah.
that kind of would have given me and created what I do and or have now, just not on ESPN.
Um as you kind of went through this process of listening to other offers and talking to ESPN, was there ever a concern that ESPN might decide to move on? Like did you see them sign Peter Schrager and think, "Uh-oh, like did they just give him my money?"
No, not really. Like that sounds so egotistical.
I don't know.
I
I don't
honestly,
think it does. Especially because like you were still having conversations with ESPN, so like you would know if there was a time where they were like, "This is our, you got to sign it now or else."
yeah, I really, really, really believed in the work. I really
Yeah.
believed in the work. I also, again, I'm not naive to, all right, s- June comes or July comes and X happens and I had said no or they pull and they walk away and say no. That means you're replacing all day Monday coverage, most of Tuesday coverage, most of Wednesday coverage, all day Thursday coverage, a lot of Friday coverage, and some certainly Saturday coverages, as well as your second NFL game analyst. So like that's a lot to try to like piece together. Now, could they? Of course, but it's just a lot. And so,
Yeah.
um, I honestly, I felt comfortable with the conversations we were having. I felt good about the work that had been done, and I'm very grateful where it's settled.
Were you always interested in doing media as a second career after you were
No,
done playing?
no, 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 no. Like I'm unique. I guess I have a very big picture personality when it comes to like the way I look at things. I'm constantly looking at the big picture. But when I was playing, I really didn't because I was like, I'm getting paid to play. And again, I wasn't a star. So it was like, I'm trying to play as long as I can and keep this career going as long as I'm capable. So I was so focused on that. I thought I would go into coaching. I got done playing in the fall of 17. Coach Caldwell offered me the opportunity to go right away into coaching in Detroit. I thought about it for like a week or two. My kids were probably like 6, and my daughter was probably 2. And so that was the first time in October that I wasn't playing football since I was 9. So, that I always thought I would go into coaching, and then, a couple months after that, the TV stuff started, and that again, that was a little bit of the crossroads of this past spring. I remember going to my wife sometime in March or April and being like, "Hey, if you ever," because my wife's a Philly girl, we obviously moved around post marriage playing, and I was like, "If you've ever wanted to not live in Connecticut and live somewhere else, like this would be the time for us to very much so entertain that." And then that would have been changing jobs more than likely, whether it was
Yeah.
going into coaching or a different network.
So how did you end up at ESPN then in those early years after retiring?
Yeah. Well, part of the reason is the guy you mentioned not long ago was Schrager. So, the story is, and it's long, but I'll give it to you brief. Sunday night football is happening. This is in the fall of 17 when I got cut by the Rams. It's the Panthers and the Dolphins. It's Cam Newton sees a blitz. I'm listening to the game. He changes the play at the line of scrimmage, checks to a wide receiver screen, throws the screen, blitz comes, walk in touchdown. And I'm like, this is the coolest thing ever. And the broadcast really isn't talking about like why it happened. And I was like, everyone should know how cool that was, because one of it was Cam Newton, physical freak, all that. Like that was super smart and highly intellectual and whatnot. They weren't talking about it. I was like, people need to realize how cool that is and was. And my wife said, you should make a video and put it on the internet. I didn't have social media at the time. I was like, that's super dumb. I think social media is stupid. A couple minutes later, came to my senses. I muted the television. I made a video. I posted it on the internet, similar to kind of what I do still do now. Woke up, it went viral, and I was like, "That's it." So I started doing that really the fall of that 17 season. During that off season, right around the Super Bowl time, post Super Bowl, Schrager DM'd me on social media. Peter Schrager was like, "Would you come and do this stuff on our show?" Absolutely. So I would go up and drive and do all those kinds of breakdowns and whatnot on Good Morning Football for probably like 2 or 3 months with like Schrager and Nate and Kyle and Kay Adams were there. And then that led to me going to broadcast boot camp, and broadcast boot camp led me to auditions. And I auditioned at NFL Network, CBS, and ESPN. And that spring, all three gave me the opportunity to go work there. And ESPN, I honestly chose just because I was a Connecticut kid. I grew up on
Yeah.
ESPN. I grew up on Sports Center. ESPN's in Connecticut. So I was like, this is my favorite television show of all time. I'm going to go there. And so that's kind of how I got started there.
Did you did you think that you also had a personality that would resonate with people? Like, did you know that you had as much entertainment value as you did an ability to analyze football games?
No, but I will say this. I think two things. I remember always, not shocking here. I remember always as a teenager, like enjoying being the center of attention. I think that was partly why I ended up playing quarterback a little bit, other than like I could throw. Like I did enjoy that. I liked it. My dad used to say it to me all the time, like, you love being the center of attention all the time. So like I do think that was an innate thing for me. And then also, backup quarterback, part of the evolution of it for me was you got to fit in with everybody in the locker room. Like you got to bring value to the locker room because you're not going to play more than likely. And I do think that there was this over the course of a dozen years, this development of a personality that had the ability to kind of be with everybody and hang with everybody and kick with everyone, fit in with everyone, laugh with everybody, understand that we're all different worlds and whatnot. So I think that that was a little bit in nature and a little bit nurture type of thing. And then, and there's the perception out there. I see it all the time that like everybody's like ESPN tells these people what to do and or say. I think the opposite probably was a benefit for me was ESPN's never told me like do this or don't do this. I've had producers, like one of the great things I would tell you was when I first started being on Get Up and first started to break down the tape on the wall, there was this young producer there named Zach Benabid. I think Zach is with Fox now. But after the first couple of breakdowns, Zach came up to me. He's like, listen, what you're doing is all awesome. He's like, interact with the screen, like bring energy to the screen and then from the screen to the camera. And once he said that, I was like, oh, so I can do that. And so, other than that, I think that was a little bit of naturally myself and a little bit of, just one or two coaching points.
Yeah, so you kind of brought it up there. So how is working for ESPN from like the standpoint? Because it almost seems there is this bit of a trend when people leave ESPN, they act like Disney suppresses certain ways of thinking. Do you see those complaints, and have you ever felt that?
I see the complaints. I do. I love a lot of those people. I got a lot of appreciation for them. I've never felt that. I maybe I've only been there 7 years. I also don't dance in a lot of those forums. I don't dabble in a lot of them, like I don't, that's not an interest level of mine. So I've never felt that. Listen, I've had a slip up or two that um, has probably gathered some public attention, but I've never felt that. I've never like had that call or whatnot. And so, listen, I've been encouraged, like just and this is from like the people around me that are trying to probably um make sure, like, listen, you can get yourself in trouble on social media quickly. And so I think there's people around me that aren't ESPN or Disney people or employees that try to make sure that my mindset is right more often than not. Like, hey, just be smart with this or this or this. I've had those conversations, but I've never. I keep sitting here like with this stare. Like, I really, and I want to, because I want to be honest with you. Like, I really don't recall a moment when someone who's been an ESPN or Disney employee has been like, "You can't say this," or "Don't say that," or "Do not do this," or "Say this," or "Say that."
I remember when you prayed for Damar Hamlin on air, and I'm pretty sure that was during NFL Live. Again, that was something that was it came across as heartfelt and genuine. How did you decide on doing that, and was that uncomfortable at all? Because that's not normal.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable. Yes. So I was traveling the night Damar's injury happened. I was calling a college football bowl game. I was at the airport and it was late, and the group text on NFL Live was just going off. And I read quickly, Damar Hamlin just fainted on the field. My initial reaction was like, it happens all the time in football. And Ryan Clark FaceTimed me because I was like, huh? And Ryan RC FaceTimed me, and I can see by the look on his face, I was like, oh, this is different. And he was like, "No, bro, like it's bad. He passed out. He fainted." And so like in taking that all in, being the football person that I was, like it was definitely emotional. And then throughout the next day, I finally get on the next day, your updates, and everyone keeps saying thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. And I thought to myself, like, someone should actually pray for Damar, like actually pray for him instead of saying thoughts and prayers. Not that that's not amazing. And I started to like have a feeling in my heart of like, okay, Dan, like God's telling you, go pray for Damar. And back and forth, I'm not going to do it. Yes, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Yes, I'm going to do it. All that. And on my drive up to work, getting ready to do the show, our producer Mark Eisman called, and we were talking about the show. And I said, hey, just so you know, I might pray for Damar, on TV. I actually just might pray for him. And he was like, do you be yourself? He's like, just if you are going to, make sure that Marcus and Laura know beforehand. So I was like, okay. Again, battling back and forth. Don't do it, Dan. Prayer's not for everybody. All that. And before the show, I grabbed Marcus and Laura, and I was like, hey guys, I don't know if I will or won't, but I might pray for Damar on, during the show. And Laura was like, we got you. And Marcus like looked me dead in the eye. And he was like, all good. Don't do it for TV though. If you're gonna do it because you want to pray for him. So okay. During the show, pit in my stomach. If you do this, are you gonna get fired? Like like it's not, again, not for everybody. And I just once I got to the point where I was like overwhelmingly scared to do it because of what the public perception or reaction was going to be, that's when I had the like tug of my heart from God to be like, do it. And I did it. And it was a very, very surreal and special moment.
What was the public reaction? Like what did you hear from?
Oh, 99.999999999% was like, oh my gosh. Everyone was like, and I still have people come up to me in the airport, like, thank you so much for praying for Damar. What you did for Damar, you praying for Damar, and I've showed that to our kids, and my kids now are more comfortable praying out in public or whatnot. And so, did I get an email here or there, a text message here or there from people who said it wasn't for them or, not their cup of tea? Of course I did. But overwhelmingly, I think a lot of people just connected and it resonated with.
And what was the reaction from ESPN? Obviously, you did not get fired.
Yeah. ESPN, like, it was like the overwhelmingly positive experience.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, I think that there were some people who didn't say anything. I'm trying to think, but like, I had tons and tons of people who reached out. And we're like, man, that was awesome, whatnot. I had people who reached out and said, like, you know, um, there's a group of us that work for ESPN and or Disney that are outspoken Christians, and it's something that's great to see, and we're grateful for all that. And so, again, I didn't have any like negative or pushback or wrist slap or anything from them about that.
What was the reaction to having your son Madden on NFL Live this year for World Autism Day? How
Yeah.
special and cool was that?
Yeah, it was probably my favorite day. Certainly at ESPN, certainly favorite day on TV. Yeah, it was a surreal moment. It was definitely a moment that I will on my deathbed I will remember. We still have I literally yesterday I was at a sporting goods store and a woman came up and just started talking about it. And I was with one of my other sons and she was just raving about it. And so an amazing moment. I also think, and I've said this maybe a little bit more in private than public, but I do believe it was a great day for ESPN and Disney. Like I do, like Disney's this company that is constantly, celebrating imagination and creativity, and for that to be on one of their networks was incredible. I think it was a great day for ESPN. Just you know to have that, and uh, I take a lot of pride in being like I try to be a very normal person. I know I'm not because of the job that I choose, but I am a very like simple and normal person. And so like to have, I don't want to say homegrown because that sounds stupid and loserish, but like to have a homegrown person that who works for their company on there and like showing their human side of it. I was very grateful for it. It was a very special day, and I think it was like a really, really, really good day for ESPN. Really good day for Disney. Great day for NFL Live, and so um, I, I that was also like once that day happened, I was like, there was a part of me that when it came to like the contract, I was like, are we gonna walk away from that 2 months after it happened? Like there was a little bit of a reality of that for me being like, wow, like, am I just gonna walk away? It doesn't take the moment away, but there was an emotional attachment to that I don't know if I'll ever forget.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because like obviously at that point you certainly feel like you're working with family. So to kind of give
One
that up and,
thousand
and
percent.
start
Yeah.
over.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like and there's a corniness to that. I get all that. Certainly people's perspective of it, but like there is 1000% the reality of eh, that was a moment that was shared with a lot of people that like I don't have a great desire or feel within my soul to just walk away from.
I know you're a lacrosse dad. You've mentioned that on social media. Do any of your kids play football?
Yeah, so my kids, I'm a little old school with sports. I'm a believer in like play it all, you know.
Yeah.
And so my kids kind of play everything. Out of my four kids, my autistic son Madden doesn't play sports anymore. But my I have two sons who play football. I think so let me bring this up. I gotta word this the proper way. The football they're going into eighth grade. Um I think them playing tackle football is TBD, to be determined this year. I think that if they don't, they'll play flag football. In our town, um, I do not believe that the youth football program is run well.
Mm.
Um, I don't think it's coached well, certainly for their grade. It's their decision. I share my thoughts with them. And so I want them to experience in football in a good, positive, fun, enjoyable, challenging, this is really hard way. They haven't had that the last 2 years. So I hope that they do. But I don't know if they're going to. But
But
they will play flag if they don't play tackle.
so they have played tackle.
Yes.
Um, so is that something that I know like some people have issues with kids playing tackle football? Is that something that you've been comfortable with?
Oh God, yeah, yeah. I mean, football. I owe like my life to football, you know.
Yeah.
So, I'm on board with it. I've always been comfortable with it. I always have believed not only in just football, but any sport. Like it's who they're with, who's the coach, and is it getting done the right way,
Yeah.
and a lot of the things that certainly I believe in, and I've witnessed, and so I've always been comfortable with them playing football. But like lacrosse is a crazy physical sport as well
Of
too. So,
course, yeah.
but yeah, absolutely, totally. I know. I say this. I know of thousands and thousands and thousands of football players, and so and a lot of them have great lives, and in many ways because of football.
Did you suffer any concussions when you played?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I had some pretty good ones in high school that I remember vividly, like leading up to. I don't remember a ton, like immediately after. I remember maybe hours later or the next day.
Mm.
Certainly a couple in college. I don't think I had any significant ones in the NFL. I had maybe some other injuries, but definitely I could tell you like legit good ones, like good ones that you sit there and go probably a half dozen.
And do you feel that you have any longer term effects from that, or all good right now?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't know if it's attached to what. I'm not smart enough to figure all that out. I don't know if it's because I try to be very conscious of health. I'm very active daily. I'm obviously my mind is firing a lot because of watching tape and talking football and being on TV. So I don't know if that's it or whatnot, but I don't have, at least so far, thankfully, I don't have any issues from them now that
Do
I
you,
know of.
do you feel like you got everything out of your NFL career that you could have? So like I'll ask.
99%, yes.
Yeah, because I'm just like, if you were drafted into a better scenario, like say the way Brock Purdy was, for example, like could you have had a? Do you feel like you could have had a long career as a starter if you were in a different situation?
Maybe, maybe, I think that, and I said the reason I said 99%, and this is just me being again dead honest. I
Yeah,
wish I had more of Ryan Fitzpatrick in me, and Fitzy and I were drafted in the same year. Like, um, I was in practice when I would run the scout team offense versus starting defense. I was awesome. I would light our defenses up. I mean, it was like I would gut them. And I remember playing against Revis and Darius Slay and Quandre Diggs and just ripping them. And I would talk so much trash. And then I would get into a game and I would be way more cautious and way more risk averse. Because in practice I'd be throwing no lookers and just
yeah.
ultra aggressive with the football because like if it gets picked off, yeah, it's a practice. I meant to throw it. So I do think that because I I got to a point where it was like, all right, how do I make sure that I don't hijack my career. And more often than not, as the backup quarterback, play wise on the field, it's don't give the ball away. Hey, this guy, he knows their offense. He's a great teammate. He helps everybody. If we need him to play, we'll have a chance to win. Great. And so, um, certain situations, yes, that definitely would have been a benefit. But in my control, that would be the one thing was because Fitzy just went and cut it loose, dude. And I think that was a part of the reason why he had much more of a starting career as a quarterback.
Yeah. I know you mentioned earlier that you had coaching interest again this offseason. You had also you told Dan Patrick a couple months ago that your coaching aspirations have subsided. Do you still have aspirations of coaching?
I think that probably will always be kind of a little bit of part of me, who I am. Um, it's just less now than it was honestly like 4 months ago, and certainly a year, 2, 3 years ago. Once I sat down in March and April and had some really in-depth conversations with my wife and my kids about, okay, if this was something that dad wanted to go do, like, where are we with all that and what does it mean? And that, those conversations. And so hearing that, and being a part of those conversations, it just made me feel less attached to it. And I got to a point where I honestly was like, okay, Dan, if you're going into coaching, you do it for you. Like, it's an ego move more than you publicly say that your family's important, that your wife and your marriage is important, and that your kids are important, time with all that, and then you're kind of doing something that at least doesn't place that to be at the utmost importance, because I don't have to go do the coaching. I also have like this ridiculous amount of respect for coaches and what they go through, and the commitment. So I think that it's always going to be a little bit of a part of me, but it's just much less than it was months, if not years ago.
Would you have been able to do what Jeff Saturday did and go directly from ESPN, join an NFL team in the middle of the year with no experience and take over as a head coach?
I mean, my ego says yes, like my ego says yes, but I remember talking with Jeff through that process and him sharing some of the things that he was a part of and experiencing, being like, oh my gosh. So, um, I, I part of me says again that the competitor and the ego in me says yes, but the realist in me is, man, that's just a very difficult thing to go do.
Did you ever talk to Jeff about joining his staff when he was
Yes.
the interim coach?
Yep. Yep. Both during the interim and then, that offseason, I think Jeff had put his name in for the
Yeah.
official head coaching job, and we had conversations about, that part as well.
Did it ever get close when he was interim head coach?
Not really, not really. Just because I was when he was interim, I was in season as well.
Yeah.
So, as far as like jobs, so not really. No,
Could your first coaching gig be as an offensive coordinator, or you think you would have to kind of work your way up?
I don't believe so. No, I think you could be like I think, and that was part of the conversations this spring. Of what would the role be, and a lot of them was in some form like a pass game coordinator. I think walking in and being an offensive coordinator is selfish. I think it's ignorant. I think it's disrespectful. I think it's setting yourself up for failure. Calling plays is wildly difficult. And so I think yep, you can go from TV and walk in and be a good offensive coordinator in the NFL, even in college, I think is um, foolish.
Do you prefer calling games as an analyst or working as a studio analyst?
Always depends on the game. You get a
Yeah.
good game, ain't nothing better than a good game. Like, you get a good, competitive, fun fourth quarter, action packed game. There is nothing better than that. Um, there's also games when you get and it's 40-8, and you're like, this is a tough one. So it depends on the game. Um, and then it also depends on the studio. Like, there's Monday after like an awesome Sunday that's the first month of the season or the last month of the season. and I get to be the first voice Monday morning, there's an adrenaline rush that starts to hit me at like 7:50 to 7:52 where I'm like, yup, like this is go time. And then there's moments when when me and RC used to be used to do RC versus DO or on Tuesday NFL Live, like the juice that I would get with that, doing some of the breakdowns like throughout the week, like there's energy and juice that come into those moments that are hard to replace.
So is doing a few Monday night football games every season enough to kind of like scratch that itch of wanting to call games, or do you want to do more?
I want more.
Did you talk to ESPN about that?
Yes.
Wanting more games?
Yeah. They know where I stand. Both now and in the future type of thing. So
Yeah.
point blank, very clearly, it's not different than Greg's answer either. Like, I want to
Yeah.
call the most important game or one of the most important games weekly in football.
Yeah, so like, yeah, look, you're a media veteran at this point, but you're what, 41 years old?
Yes, sir.
So, like, can you envision yourself replacing Troy Aikman or succeeding Troy Aikman on Monday Night Football at some point? Like, is that a reasonable or is that a crazy goal to set?
Of course, it's a crazy goal, but I can see myself. Yeah, absolutely. And that is said with the utmost respect and reverence, um, and admiration. But
Yeah.
absolutely, that's a crazy goal for sure. But that is one of them. Yeah, absolutely.
Were you always comfortable doing debate television? Is
No,
that
but I was
something? Was
always
there
comfortable
an
arguing.
adjustment? Okay.
No, never an adjustment. I was always comfortable arguing. Again, going back to my teen days, I everyone would always say like you always have to get the last point or you always want to argue. I think it's a way to win. I really do. Like I love having moments when I can see it in your eye, like when I got you type of thing. And I would say this, and I've said this publicly, but I don't know if it's gotten a ton of traction before. But when Stephen A called me probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And he said, "Hey, I want you to have a day." This was when he was kind of remaking the show. He's like, "I want to give you essentially like your own day." And I, again, flattered, "Thank you so much." Blah, blah, blah. And he was like, "I got one demand." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "I do not care if you're right. You pick a side and go. I don't care if you're right. You have to pick a side and you got to argue your side." And I think him saying that, like, freed me up in a way, empowered me. I don't know if I would have been as comfortable,
Hmm.
but him giving me the kind of like the free reign to be like, "Go," and having him do it for me was a big deal.
So is that something that you've gotten more comfortable with as you went on? Is just like taking a side and not caring about whether you're right, or more so even saying not caring about the reaction if you're wrong?
Yeah, it's definitely I've gotten more comfortable with that. I don't wanna be wrong, I hate being
Yeah.
wrong, I believe I should be right. When I got into this industry, people would tell me, "Hey, you think you have to be right, you're not paid to be right." I completely respectfully disagree with that. I wanna be right. I think that's what separates people in this industry, and I think that's why you should get paid a certain amount of money. Um, and so I think I've gotten more I chase being right. I chase being right. I'm not comfortable being wrong. I know I'm going to be wrong at times, and I know there's going to be dunked on reactions when I am. But I will never strain to be right more than others if I don't get comfortable with the reaction of being wrong. So I do think I've grown in that regard. Yeah.
It seems like everybody loves to call you out for your food takes and opinions. What is the which of your food takes or opinions has gotten the biggest reaction, would you say?
Mm. Um, I think the Reese's thing became a big deal
Yeah.
last year. And everyone always comes up to me like that was staged, right? And like that, I was literally sitting there and I just no, it wasn't staged. Um, that one was pretty big. I'm trying to think of what other ones have had some big reactions. Sweet potato fries. I'm always like, why are we eating French fries, guys? Um,
The plain
Ketchup on
nachos
steak.
Ketchup on steak, yeah. Plain nachos, I think, comes up a lot too.
Yeah, nachos with just the chipped cheese and chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't like guacamole with red onion, so, like, you gotta check what's in the guacamole because I like guacamole if it's, like, avocado and sweet onion, but red onion, too much.
Yeah. Um, I think it's like you've had some bad or weird ones, but I do think it's almost gotten to the point where now like people just react negatively to whatever you say about food because you have had some there have been some good takes too, and I think those kind of get lost. Like
Well,
the egg sandwiches need a fried egg with a yolk that breaks. Like I think that's a good take.
yeah,
Um, eggs over like pancakes, I think is a good take.
yeah.
Uh, liking vodka sauce, like there's nothing wrong
Oh,
with that. So
delicious.
there are I think there's some takes that you should get defended on, but then you go and you eat a people watch you eat a Reese's or a Mentos and like it's tough to defend you after
Oh, the
that.
Mentos, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, be honest with you, in the last year, I've started to dabble more with some foods that I would never have in the past. Like, part of it is just because of the way I grew up. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't have a ton of options to go and, like, I was eating mayonnaise sandwiches, it's just kind of what we had, so and that's a very real thing and I loved it. And so I've tried to over the past year like dabble with more food and to try more food. And like even where was I was somewhere the other day. Oh, we went to there's a new like sushi restaurant in town. Tried to eat a little bit like try more sushi. The only one I like is the California roll. Go to a new sushi restaurant with some friends. Try this miso pod. It's delicious. Great. I tried. I go, it's fine. Like it's fine, but I'm not going here and ordering that over like would I much rather have a cheese and chicken quesadilla? Absolutely. So it's like that's my thing. And so sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's fine, but like I'm not for $38, I'm not looking forward to buying it.
Yeah, so and then that's the other one. I know Stephen A makes fun of you for being cheap, like not wanting to pay for parking, not wanting to pay for
Totally.
first class. I think that though makes you relatable. And I think that
Yeah.
even like some of the quirky food takes like here is a former NFL quarterback who is admittedly strange. Like that's relatable. And as much as people try to make fun of you for some of this stuff, I do think that is also why they like you.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that one of the things I have learned over the years, and thank you for saying that. I like, and I again, this I just feel like I'm a relatively normal person.
Yeah.
I think one of the things I have learned over the years is like once you become unlikable on TV, I think it's really hard to get back to being likable. And so the last thing that I think people watching TV want is they know because you're on TV that you're different than them. I
Yeah.
think most people just know that, but they don't want you to constantly remind them about it. They don't. And so like I think that there's a reality where I try to be conscious of it. I don't want to say conscious because it's not like I want people to just see me as like Asia's normal dude, and so like I do think that there's a reality that people enjoy that, but that's a real thing. Like I don't like spending money. I don't. I don't like spending the money. I've never liked spending money. I don't understand people's obsession with it at times, and so like um food, I like to go out to a nice meal occasionally, but like I'd much rather spend $12 on a Chipotle bowl than, $50 at some restaurant. Like I don't need to fly first class.
Yeah.
It's a 2-hour flight.
Yeah, no, that's relatable. That's definitely relatable.
Yeah.
Um, I do just before we finish up, I want to ask your thoughts on the Lloyd Howell and JC Tretter resigning. And well, I'll ask it this way: what would your concerns be if these NFLPA leadership changes were taking place while you were still a player?
I think that my thought would be, and probably more when I was older, is like, what the heck are we doing? I think that there's a lot of trust that gets placed from the players to the NFLPA with a lot of the things that are attached to their career. How are the players getting taken care of? How are they being protected? What's the CBA? How much are we getting from that? What's the health benefits, all that. And so when when you're seeing some of the reports come out, naturally as a player, I would be like, "What we're doing? What? Like you're doing what with our money? Like this you're doing what with that leadership role? And so how much money have you taken from me? Like how much of my money, not this year, but over, if I've played 4, 5, 6, 7 years, like how much money of mine that has been wasted, with, at least with some of the reports and the allegations. And then if you can't if you can't handle yourself and control yourself that way, you think I trust you with being able to handle yourself and control yourself with the billionaires? And so how much are we being, I guess, taken advantage of as players? And whose side are you on? Who are you really working for, in regards to that? So I haven't had my nose to the ground on it a ton, but I've seen a lot of the reports, and it's I got a couple text messages last week being like, "Hey, have you seen this?" And I said, "No." And they said it's bad and it's going to get worse. And so it's wild that if true, is
Yeah.
happened.
So does that make it like, is the players union in a weakened position today?
Of
And if
course.
so, what does that mean for the future?
I mean, if everything's true or a lot of the reports are true, of course they're weakened because they look like they're led by clowns. Like it looks like a clown show. And again, these guys are billionaires. You
Yeah.
don't think that they're going to take advantage of that? You don't think that they're going to, you know, um, a lot of their ducks are in a row, and so I think that they definitely look weakened. They're going to be fractured.
Yeah.
That's the concern, is the PA or players going to become fractured, because solidarity obviously matters. What it means for the down the road, it's probably a little bit above my skis. I've never been too deep into the PA world and whatnot. So, but this is like common. I think common, like, I guess, business is, when one side looks to be devoid of leadership, and another side doesn't seem to be struggling, one has the upper hand significantly.
And then last thing, how many years do you think Matthew Stafford has left?
Um, I would be surprised if he plays two. I
Yeah.
think he's got one. I think a lot of it depends on how it goes. My gut, I honestly believe if they beat Philly last year, they go to the Super Bowl. I think if they go to the Super Bowl, they win it. I wouldn't have been surprised if he walked away after that.
Yeah.
I think they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender this year. I think if they get to and/or win it, I think he walks. I think he's done with playing then. So I think one. I guess I wouldn't be shocked by two, but um, we'll see.
Did you think that he would have actually left for the Giants or another team?
I thought the chances of that happening were zero.
Hmm.
Yeah, I just, um, knowing where he is in his life and whatnot,
Yeah.
I did not think that was real.
Good stuff. Dan, you were great. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Yep. That is Dan Orlovsky. I'm Brandon Contes. This is the Awful Announcing Podcast. Please rate and subscribe to this podcast. Please also subscribe to Awful Announcing's YouTube page. But regardless of how you consume Awful Announcing and the Awful Announcing Podcast, thanks for listening and be good.
Thanks for listening to the Awful Announcing Podcast. For the latest news spanning the sports media landscape and more, check out awfulannouncing.com and follow us at Awful Announcing.